So we're here with Russ, Avery, and myself, Josh. Avery, do you mind briefly introducing yourself, sharing your name, sport, and also the university that you attended?
My name's Avery, and I played women's soccer at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga for 4 years. And then I briefly played at Ball State as well. And I'll touch on that more later on.
And then reflecting on your journey and really looking back, how did that journey as a student athlete really shape you both, personally, but also athletically?
I really feel like I could go on forever about that question, because I feel like it shaped me in so many different ways. And the way that I think about it is that, there were some positives and some negatives that I was actually able to turn into a positive. But as far as personally, I feel like it really forced me to create really good self-care habits. And it also developed a lot of skills that have transferred over just into other facets of life, like work and everything like that. I feel like I really had to nail down my time management. And that was huge for me, as well as a lot of other skills like communication. And then I also just found my lifelong best friends, which is definitely a positive and how it shaped me personally. And I feel like I just have a different type of relationship with them because they all get what I've been through in terms of being an athlete, and we spent so many hours together. And so I'm really appreciative of them as well as a lot of mentors that I gained throughout my time as an athlete, starting when I was really young all the way through college. And then there were some negative sides to it in terms of, my identity really being tied into being an athlete. So when that part wasn't going well, it kind of felt like my whole life wasn't going well. And I would say the severe performance anxiety that came along with that was definitely tough for a while. Um, However, I was able to find my passion about student athlete mental health through my own struggles. So I'm really thankful for that, and just being more involved in the field and helping other athletes who have been through experiences like that in the future.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing a little bit about that. And so, I know that you briefly mentioned a little bit of this, but kind of piggybacking on that previous question and conversation, were there any strategies, and if so, to really that you used, I guess, to maintain that healthy balance between not only the academic responsibilities of just being a general college student, but also the demands of being an athlete as well?
That was definitely tough when I first started out at UTC. I struggled a little bit academically my freshman year, and I had never struggled academically before coming into college. So I really had to learn how to develop better time management strategies, and really like leaning on my resources that were provided to me, like through academics, the academic advisors. We had free tutoring, just really like learning that it was okay to utilize those resources and it didn't indicate like any form of weakness or anything like that. And then just like little things like, learning that I did not do well studying in my apartment, or my dorm. I had to get out and be away from the distractions of Netflix and things like that. But I really feel like I grew in that area along my time. So.
And that's great too. I know that a lot of times I agree. I've been there before too with, hey, they have all those resources on campus, whether it's tutors, other mentors to see and different peers, and sometimes you see it as a weakness. So appreciate you, really explaining, hey, it's more of, there to empower you as that student at the same time. And so transitioning and speaking a little bit more about just mental health and just the general awareness, specifically kind of in the college athletic scene. How important do you believe that mental health awareness is for student athletes? And also, what role do you believe that it played in your own athletic career as well?
Yeah, so again, I love this question. I think that it is crucial to advocate for student athlete mental health. I mean, unfortunately, we've seen a lot of cases where it's not being advocated for. and those cases not ending up in a ending up well at all, I guess is what that's an understatement, honestly. But it's crucial with all of the pressures that student athletes face, in the classroom, on the field or court, and then just personally, like for them to have support is so important. And I experienced that myself. We had one counselor embedded in athletics, and he was really influential on me. However, it was only him with 300 plus athletes. And he's no longer at UTC, but I still keep up with him today. And I just previously was talking to him about, he still feels like, I wish I could have done more, or like I wanted to stay, like I was passionate, but he was facing some burnout himself for just having that amount of athletes and just feeling like he couldn't be present with each athlete and be there enough or as much as he wanted to be. So, although I feel like maybe some awareness is being brought to student athlete mental health, there's still a long way to go in that area. And I hope to be able to positively impact that as well.
For sure. And I think even just sharing your story is, a great start as far as being a positive impact and change for just mental health awareness in general for student athletes. Um, and as far as challenges faced being a student athlete, I mean, were there any specific challenges that you encountered or experienced as a student athlete during your college career? And, what or how did you really try to overcome that?
I feel like I honestly was facing challenges on the daily. Just the extent of the challenge was maybe different. It could have been just anything from like a bad test score to a bad practice. But where I really feel like I struggled was within my performance anxiety that I mentioned. I mean, looking back, I feel as though it was pretty severe, and I wasn't able to perform well because of my anxiety. And like I was playing really stiff because I was scared of making mistakes, even though our coaches were great about telling us, I'd rather you play quickly, make mistakes, like we'll learn from that. But I was just like for a while playing really careful, and then when I did make a mistake, it was really hard to shake that mistake. um so I feel like that was probably the biggest challenge I faced as an athlete. And then there were a few strategies that did help me. One being, I worked with my counselor in athletics, and we spoke about, maybe thinking about somebody in my life that, they want me to perform well, but if I didn't, they would still love me the exact same, even if I never touched a soccer ball ever again. And that was really calming for me for sure. And then just thinking about like little phrases, maybe in the middle of a game that kind of put some perspective, like, at the end of the day, it is a game. There's a lot of passion behind it. There's been a lot of work behind it, but it's not a life or death situation, even though it felt like that at times.
I know that you briefly already touched on this with kind of, the support at the college level, but do you mind, I guess, going into a little bit more depth as far as, hey, was that the primary support system for college? Was it reaching out to other friends, family, teammates, coaches, stuff like that? Well, like while you were a student athlete, or was it primarily like, hey, we had a great resource to talk to, and he was awesome for helping me out. Um, Again, I know for myself personally, we didn't have that resource available, and so it was either talk to my parents about stuff, or just kind of be left in my own thoughts. But if you could elaborate a little bit on, just the support system and who you really turn to during the college scene, that'd be awesome.
I really had to learn how to lean on my resources, because that's not something I was great at in high school. I was kind of like, everything's good all the time. Um, and so I did lean on our counselor in athletics, but as I mentioned, he did have like a limited schedule for sure. So he was helpful, but I really leaned on my friends and family at the time as well, which was hard because I didn't want to like dump everything on them. And at the same time, a lot of them, if they hadn't been in athletics, they didn't really understand. they tried, but not everything made sense to them in a way. And I didn't really feel like talking to my teammates that often about it because they were going through the same things. I didn't want to like dump it on them and things like that. So that was kind of hard to navigate for a while. I would say I did have a lot of conversations with teammates about things we were going through, which was very similar, obviously, but it was difficult to navigate. So
And now really transitioning, I know that I feel like this is a maybe either a broad question or I see it as a very broad question, but ultimately, how do you personally define success? And I can elaborate on that being more in the context of truly being a student athlete. And over time, whether that was, from high school up until college, till post graduation, how has success and the definition of that really evolved over that time period?
I feel like maybe I started to form my definition of that when I was in high school, and it was always about getting to college. And I was specifically really focused on what division it was. So that was probably like my main focus. And then once I got to college, it was like, okay, well, like how can I start? And how can I play every single minute perfectly? And I'm a perfectionist and I'm really hard on myself. And so freshman year when I came in, I was in a position where I was under two upperclassmen in my position. And so it was kind of a waiting game to where, like, if one of them got hurt or sick, like I was playing. So I was happy about that because I saw the future, but it was also really hard freshman year um, to stay on the path of like, okay, I just got to be patient, keep working hard. And then after my sophomore year, I was a starter all the way through at UTC and was playing every minute. But it's like, even when I got to that point, it wasn't enough. Like I then had to be perfect in order to feel successful. And same thing in the classroom. I needed to have perfect grades and at first it was like, okay, by myself I need to do that, like not using any resources, it's on me to figure it out. And then, as I grew in that definition and learning, that's not realistic at all. um I was still striving for those things, but kind of being more understanding of like I'm not going to be perfect, but like how can I learn from the mistakes I'm making? And now I would really see success after I've graduated and transitioned out of athletics is more about like the kind of teammate you're being because I stay in touch with a lot of my teammates and it's like the things we remember are how we treated each other and like our relationships. We don't remember who played what game and how long and like you missed one pass or something like that happened. Like I don't remember those things. I remember how we treated each other.
And that's just a great, definition of how ever changing and evolving success really is in the world of athletics. I can reiterate too, in high school, you really dream of those divisions and that's how you determine your success. And then after college, it's like, well, success to me is, the impact that I made on my teammates and the lasting friendships and bonds that I have with them. So
Mhm.
completely agree there. And kind of going back to talking about pressure and how you handle that. Um, Obviously dealing with performance pressure is a huge common aspect within the realm of sports. And, how did you manage that in those high pressure situations, as well as what advice would you give to, a current student athlete kind of facing those same challenges as well?
So as I mentioned, I I had a lot of learning to do when I came in on that front. I really did, I'll go back to it again, learn to lean on resources, learn to lean on people in my life. And they wanted the best for me at the end of the day. So I kind of had to process through that my worth was not in how I was performing. And that was the biggest thing for me is separating those two. Like, yes, you want to be a successful athlete, you want to be a great player, but at the end of the day, like that's not the important part. The important part is how you're treating your teammates and like how they see you react when things don't go your way. Like if you were benched, like are you still supporting your teammates? That's what's important. So I really like I said, just had to learn in that area a lot. And I would say maybe work with someone, work with your resources in high school. If you want to be ahead of the game, would be my advice to kind of start separating those two because it's really hard if they're deeply rooted coming into college because it really gets more intense and um so just creating those great habits and kind of boundaries even within the sport from a younger age for sure.
Definitely, and that's awesome. And so I know in sports too, it feels like a fine line sometimes, but there's a difference between, sports performance as well as mental health and kind of, the differences, but also similarities and how they both tie into each other. And again, I know that you briefly mentioned this, but were there any specific mental health resources or practices that you found, super beneficial during your time as a student athlete, whether that was, meditation, other, forms of self-help, things like that?
I can't recommend counseling enough. I really think it's crucial for everybody. But definitely throughout my time as an athlete, I mean, you're going to be busy, but just carving out that intentional time because you can only pour so much into your sport if you're not pouring into yourself. And I'm a firm believer of that, even post athletic career, just in life in general. If you're not taking care of yourself, you can't show up for other people in your life. That's just not sustainable. And so yeah, I'd say counseling for sure, and then just any other self-care things, like maybe like even developing a hobby that you enjoy that has nothing to do with your sport. Um, and same goes for friends that have nothing to do with your sport. I love my teammates, but just to kind of get away and like remember that your whole world is not athletics. You're a whole person first. So I think that's crucial. I wasn't great with that, but I've kind of learned to develop those things as I've transitioned out of athletics. I mean, I know most universities offer a lot of different things to get involved with, and I really wish I would have gotten more involved and created the time in my schedule for it. But I think that's crucial. Meditating, that's great. I have never been great at that. I'm still trying to be great at that, and every time I work on it, I'm thankful I do. So, all of the above.
And so I know how difficult it can be for athletes, especially at the collegiate level, to really take that step into the unknown and transition out of sports and, out of their, that athletic realm, so to say. But, for yourself in navigating that change, I mean, how was that transition from, that mental standpoint? And, again, what advice would you give to someone who's, a junior or senior in college and saying, hey, I just wrapped up my winter semester, that first semester, I have one more left and I don't know what to do. They might feel lost. They might not know. They might feel worried because, hey, all my teammates and all my sport, that's been my identity for the last, 10, 12, 15 years of their lives. What advice and what things really helped prepare you mentally for that graduation and transition period?
Yeah, I guess my answer is I was not prepared at all. Um, and actually I had a really like non-traditional transition out of the sport as well that I think it maybe like intensified it actually. I had decided after my senior year at UTC that I knew I was pursuing grad school, hoping to enter the sports psychology and counseling field. And I decided that I wasn't going to pursue my COVID year, even though I had that last year of eligibility. And so that spring semester, I wasn't practicing or anything. And then once I decided on the grad school I was attending, I um, kind of was exploring the soccer component again, just because I mean, it's natural to miss it. And I think I also felt a pressure to like not use all my eligibility even though I had played my 4 years. And so I decided to pursue that, and it ended up working out, and I felt great about it. That semester. And then after graduation, when I was training again and preparing, I was like, man, I don't know if physically or mentally I am prepared for this COVID year. But I pursued it anyway. And that's what I mentioned before. I went to Ball State and had started preseason there, and the coaches were great, my teammates were great, but I just felt off, and that I wasn't in it at all. I was lacking complete confidence on and off the field, and I was just in a really horrible spot mentally. I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping, and I was trying to give it some time. I moved to a new place, and I thought maybe it could be that. And I gave it everything I had, and ultimately had to make the decision to move back to Tennessee, and to take a gap year for grad school as well, which was really hard for me, being someone who had a lot of identity in being a student and an athlete. And then all of a sudden, unexpectedly, I was neither one of those things when I moved back. And so I think through that journey, I learned just how much identity I had in those things. And I had been a lot of healing, a lot of counseling has brought me to where I'm ready to share my story and help anyone that may be feeling that way as well. And it just created even more of a passion for me, entering the field and advocating for student athlete mental health.
And so, off of that too, is there a specific legacy or even impact that you hope to leave behind for current and future student athletes?
I mean, kind of what I just mentioned with making my story have other student athletes feel comfortable sharing their stories, and feel more comfortable with seeking the help that they need and that they deserve. And for a while I thought, it looked weak to seek that help, and it's actually takes way more strength and courage to stand up and say, like, this isn't going great for me, like I need help, I don't know what to do, I'm at a loss. Because it was really tempting even at Ball State for me to just continue on and try to push through it, even though it wasn't going to be fair to my teammates or my coaches or my professors either, just because of like where I was at mentally. So I'd say, like, I hope my legacy would be to make other athletes feel more comfortable, as well as be an advocate for them.
That's great. And if you could go back, I guess I'll split this one up into two parts, but if you could go back and give your younger self advice, let's say both at the high school level as well as at the college level, what would that be?
I would say definitely slow down, because I mean, this is so cliche, but it really does go by in a blink of an eye. And I wish I would have enjoyed the little things instead of getting so caught up in what seemed like were world-ending things. Just honestly, like little interactions with my teammates. I know, like, at UTC, we'd all get there early and pass and talk the mornings before practice. And like, those are some of my best memories. And I felt like I really built my relationships with my teammates that have lasted through that. And just, I mean, it's honestly humorous how, like, things that I used to be miserable doing, I miss them. Like the hard workouts, just like it's really not that deep. Like, it's not, I promise it's all gonna be okay. Like, it'll work out, and you may be struggling, but just seeking that help so that you can enjoy it and be present during that time. Uh, I wish that I knew that for sure.
I know that you kind of briefly mentioned that, hey, looking back, those are good memories, right? Hanging out with the teammates during those times, swapping stories and just, seeing how life is going. But if you really had to go back to either the high school or collegiate experience and say, this was one of my, favorite memories. It was awesome. It was, either a great time in both your athletic career, your academic career, something like that. But, what was one or two that really stand out to you?
I definitely say, like, my favorite memory would be my senior year at UTC, we actually won the regular season title for the Southern Conference, and that is definitely one of my favorite memories. I mean, obviously, like I'm an athlete, I love winning, but it was honestly more than that, just like celebrating with my teammates and like we had kind of in the preseason poll, we had been put like way down the list, and just kind of being like an underdog in that way, like that really like was one of the best memories of my entire career, and just being able to like spend that time and celebrate with my teammates.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, who doesn't like winning, right? But, and I know, Avery, that you and I have had previous conversations about kind of fluid sports tech and, kind of what we're trying to achieve in the space of student athletes, mental health, and sports performance and kind of bridge that gap. But, how do you think technology in general, fluid sports tech, our application that we're looking to, really put out there for those student athletes, how could that have, a positive impact on student athletes currently? And how do you think that could have also shaped your athletic experience as well?
I think that is huge. And just kind of destigmatizing the field and making athletes feel more comfortable coming forward. They're seeing other athletes speak up, just bringing more awareness to this issue. And I touched on this previously, but I've really seen a gap myself, that I feel like the app can definitely help cover. And I really wish I would have had something like this as a student athlete, because I feel like, on the days where it's like, oh man, I can't get into counseling today, but I'm needing some form of support, and I don't want to dump on my teammates or friends and family. Like that's huge, just to have something when you're busy. You could be in recovery on the app, you could be doing something else, but you're still like pouring into yourself. So
I think you summed that up great as far as just, hey, at the end of the day, just another resource that student athletes can utilize and use. In talking with you previously, we both kind of agree that hey, there should be a plethora of resources available for those student athletes to turn to, and that all colleges, regardless of Division 1 or Division 3, they should have all offerings available to those student athletes to seek support. And then kind of wrapping up here a little bit, but is there, one piece of wisdom or even encouragement that you'd like to really share with the audience, with other student athletes, and just, general athletics as well?
I mean, I feel like this point is repetitive for sure, but it's so important. Is just not tying your worth with how you're performing in your sport. I feel like that is the most important thing. And I feel like that creates a lot of anxiety and pressure that is not needed. And just kind of along with that, just remembering that you have so many people that love and care about you despite what's occurring on the field or the court. And really you should not feel like that's all you have going for you at all. And just like really I want to promote building those habits, and surrounding yourself with people that will remind you of that, and apps that will remind you of that constantly, because it will be hard not to get tied up, because it's something that you're really passionate about and you're putting so much time into it. But you can work really hard at something and it's still not define who you are as a person. And so I definitely want to make sure that all athletes are aware of that and advocate for athletes who are maybe experiencing feeling like their worth is in their sport.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, hey, Avery, this has been an awesome, super positive, impactful 30 minutes for myself. I hope same goes for everybody listening on the other side as well. And just learning more about you, your background, your story as a student athlete, and ultimately all the words of wisdom that you shared upon us today. Can't thank you enough for that. As well. Guys, if you want to go follow Avery again, we'll be sure to leave her social medias down below. She's a great advocate for mental health as well as just general athletics as well. But other than that, really do appreciate it. And we will catch you guys in the next one.
Thank you so much.